Hello, this is Rick Saltarelli with Salty Breeze Cruise Planners with this week's travel presentation, Beyond Your Front Door. Today, I have with me Amy Southgate, the Strategic Account Manager for Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines in the St. Petersburg and Clearwater area. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Excellent. I had my big haul at Publix, so I feel like a champion. So I'm ready to start my day.
All right. And for those that don't know you that are listening into our show today, they may not know that you used to work on a cruise ship. So not only are you with Royal Caribbean in a sales capacity and a customer service capacity, you are also a former crew member. So a lot of our questions today are going to be about your time on board a ship. So my first question is, what led you to working on a cruise ship in the first place?
Well, it was a bit of a fluke because I had haphazardly taken a job in Denali, Alaska, and this was in 2008, and it was just a fluke I even got that gig. So I took that job, temporary position, seasonally, and while I was there, I met a lot of people that worked for other cruise lines, and they said, oh, you should work on a cruise. You would love it. It's so much fun. It's hard work. You know, they told me kind of the good, bad, and the ugly, and I thought, well, it sounds pretty cool. You know, I'm not tied down. I should go for it. So I actually put in my application and didn't hear anything for a bit. So I accepted a different job in Key Largo, Florida. So I was going to spend the winters in Florida, summers in Alaska, which is really great, by the way. And actually the day I was coming home from the post office with that job in my hand, they called me back when they used to mail a letter to tell you got a job. They called me to interview for Royal Caribbean. So I did the interviews and they said, we'll call you within 7 days. They called me hours later and said, when can you come to Miami? And I said, well, I live in Alaska. I'm going to have to go home. I'm going to have to get clothes, you know, figure this all out. So a couple of months later, I joined my first ship, Majesty.
Wow. And if I remember correctly, you had never been on a cruise ship before. So this is a pretty bold step to go from being based on land all the time to working on a ship. How did you do that? What was your first impression of walking on the Majesty of the Sea?
Well, it was overwhelming, definitely, because prior to that, I'd been on like a ferry boat to Put in Bay, and I've been on my dad's boat, and that's basically it. I've never been on a big boat or ship for that matter. So it was definitely shocking. It was interesting because the Independence of the Seas had recently come out. So all the other crew members were talking about the Independence and how great it was. And I didn't know that ship from Adam. So I saw the Majesty and was like, whoa, this is so amazing. This is so big. There's so many people. I mean, I loved it. I even had a hard time getting around the ship. The crew corridors are definitely not as easy to follow as the guest corridors are. So especially for the first couple of weeks, I got lost going to the mess, which is like the cafeteria, a lot because it's kind of a roundabout way to get there. But I was really overwhelmed because I had kind of always thought that cruising was for like the rich and famous. And it was cool to see other people like me. I was like, why didn't my parents take me on a trip like this? There's lots of families here. Everyone's having fun. This looks really cool. So it's really, really eye-opening, overwhelming at first. And then you kind of learn the ropes. But I was hooked right away. I loved it.
And what kind of role did you have when you first joined? Because I know you eventually became a cruise director, but what were you doing when you first joined?
So when I first joined in 2008, I was cruise director staff. I hosted bingo and karaoke, did all the greets and de-greets, crowd control stuff, theater, you know, different types of entertainment.
All right. And then you became a cruise director in 2011. What was your greatest challenge and maybe the most rewarding part of that job?
There were many challenges. So after Majesty, I went to Independence. I got tapped to do the Oasis takeout. So I went to Finland for that. That was in 2009 before she launched. And so I was at the shipyard for about 6 weeks maybe before the ship launched. And so I started in 2009 as cruise director staff. The following year, 2010, I got promoted to activities manager. And then the following year, again, the cruise director was going to another ship, and they had a list of names, all men, because most cruise directors are. And they said, Amy, you've been here since startup. Which of these guys do you think would be the right fit for the ship? And I said, none of them. I said, me, because I've been here since the beginning, and it's a totally different flow of the cruise. And it was a very bold thing to say. And I literally went back to my cabin and told my husband, oh my gosh, I think I made a huge mistake. I told them I can do the job, and I didn't know if I could do the job. But they said, okay, we'll give you a trial and see how it goes. And luckily, it was sink or swim, and I swam. Not so beautifully at first, but you learn the ropes, and it does become easier with time, because every 7 days on the Oasis of the Seas, you get to do it all over again. So you try different things each week. That didn't really work, or that was great. Attendance wasn't so good at this time. Maybe we tweak the timing or the day. So it's a very complicated job. So, and there's a lot of parts that are challenging. Probably the same thing that is the most challenging is the most rewarding, and that's the people that you work with. So as cruise director on the Oasis, I managed an entertainment team of over 200 people from about 45 different countries, ranging in ages from 18 to 70. My oldest employee was 70, and I was 25. So trying to advise people, from different parts of the world, different walks of life, different ages, different backgrounds, trying to keep them engaged, because you're there 24/7. Sometimes you're their boss, sometimes their friend, their mom, you're everything. So that part's really difficult. But when you help people grow in their leadership roles, and you see them come up the ranks and are able to recommend them for promotion and coach them along the way, there's a few people that I really was able to take a lot of time with and really groom and mentor along the way. That was by far the best part, because to see them excel and eventually become cruise directors as well is really a cool thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, for anybody that's been on a cruise, they know that the cruise directors are everywhere, and that's only one person. So how many hours a day does a cruise director really work?
It depends on the day. I would say a port day is less, depending on the time that you're in port and how intensive the port is. If you're in Rome, let's say from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., most of the guests are off the ship exploring. If you're in Nassau, and you depart at 3 o'clock, obviously most of the guests are coming back early. So on a port day, I would say maybe around 8 hours. Sea day, more like 12 to 14 hours.
Oh, wow.
But you get your breaks in there.
Yeah. And what do you do on those breaks when you have a day off? What do you actually do?
Well, you don't have a day off until your contract ends. So there's only a couple of positions that I can think of that actually do have one day off a week. But I would say 98% of the crew members, myself included, work every single day. So you kind of just get used to it, because everybody else is doing the exact same thing. So if I had a whole day, I don't know who I would hang out with, because everybody I know is at work. So most of the time, I guess, if you've got a break or a significant chunk of time off, you may go and have lunch in the port, go to the gym, do your laundry, take a nap. It's not real thrilling. But you got to work those things in when you've got the pockets of time.
Sure. And so my final question today is an interesting one for you. Hopefully I'm not prying, because I know that you met your husband on the Oasis of the Seas, and other people might be interested in knowing this as well. What's it like to be dating while you're working with another crew member on the same ship?
It's really unique, because it's very, I would say, not typical that you're both from the same country. So immediately, you know, there aren't very many U.S. employees anyway. So he kind of caught my eye because he was a U.S. crew member that I didn't know. So I wanted to get to know him, and he's very handsome. So another reason I wanted to get to know him. But you kind of date and fast forward because every day, like I said, you work every day. So every day is the same day over and over again. So we went to a party because they have parties for the crew members. And he said, I'd like to take you on a date tomorrow, which is not something people normally say. They might say, hey, do you want to go off and port together? Like, you know, people go and have lunch or go have drinks. But he said, I want to take you on a date. I was like, okay, call me. So he called me the next morning and we went out together in Cozumel, had a lovely lunch. And then, you know, the next day he said, I'd like to take you for lunch in Costa Maya and to the beach. Okay, great. So we did. The next day, I'd like to take you to Chops. I'm like, this guy has a lot of money and a lot of time. I really like this guy. So because, you know, every day you work all day and then you hang out or, you know, go to the crew party or go off in port. So, I mean, it's very, very quick, and you feel like you grow so fast in your relationship as well. So we had only been dating maybe 2 months, not very long. When we both were on vacation, we went to meet each other's families. And it was interesting because when I brought Andy home to meet my family, the first thing my mom said was, please don't elope. And I was like, I've just been dating this guy for a couple of months, like, give it a rest. But she knew right there, like, this was the person for me. And like I said, we were just so close right away because instead of going out once a week like you would if you're regularly dating someone on land, you know, you go out on a date every day, basically.
Sure. Well, that's amazing. I think there's another story to be told there on another presentation. So thank you for being with me today. Royal Caribbean Cruise Line is one of our most trusted partners, not just cruise partners, but partners in general. And you are an amazing business development person. You bring a lot of energy to the job, and we appreciate all your support and certainly appreciate your time with us today. So thank you very much and have a great day and a blessed week.